Hey guys, and welcome to the Adulting 101 podcast. I am so happy to have you guys tuned in. If you're watching me visually on YouTube, I appreciate you. You can see that I'm all wrapped up in my blankets because it's a cold night. It's a cold Sunday night, but I'm so excited to talk to you guys today. How are you doing? How is life? It's Monday. It's a new week. I hope you guys are all feeling positive and well. I have a few questions for you to start off this episode. Are you always stressed out? Do you find you're never satisfied with your work despite all the positive feedback you receive? Then you most likely are what is known as an insecure overachiever. Although rarely considered the type who is difficult to supervise or will easily reach burnout on a professional level, insecure overachievers don't necessarily have a healthy relationship with their jobs. In fact, their way of functioning can provoke them into overinvesting, both physically and emotionally, in their professional life, sometimes to the detriment of their personal life. In certain cases, this can lead to angst and eventually occupational exhaustion. Now, I want to know from you guys, is there anybody that can relate to that notion of an insecure overachiever? I can relate, as you can probably guess. And I'm kind of glad I came across this term because although I understand some people might feel like we're trying to put labels on a lot of things and we're trying to, justify a whole bunch of things, it really did help me understand some of the traits that I personally think are toxic for myself when it comes to work. And I remember one day being so frustrated with myself that I was so invested in work and I was trying to do so much, and one mistake or one thing that didn't go to plan or didn't go 100% would send me into deep sadness basically, and would really either ruin my day, sometimes even my week. And I just remember searching on Google something like trying to overachieve at work or doing too much at work or something like that, and then coming across this term, insecure overachiever. I think it also ties in heavily to sometimes being somebody of a minority background in the workplace, especially when you're one of few, which is quite a common experience for us in the UK. You feel like you have to do so much to prove why you were hired, or sometimes you feel like you have to do so much because you have to do twice as much as the others to show that you're worthy of a promotion or a pay rise. A pay rise or something along that line. And that's also a problem. And I think that can also be a huge factor in that. It also links a lot with a term that I'm sure you're familiar with, imposter syndrome. This idea that you feel like you don't belong, or you feel like an imposter in a certain environment. You feel like one day you're going to be found out that you're actually not as good as everyone else, or something along those lines. And so I think that being somebody of a minority background, although I'm not saying that the insecure overachiever experience is only limited to those of minority background, but I do think being of a minority background, especially being one of very few Black people or Asian people in an environment, and also I know it's very much linked to self-esteem, imposter syndrome, all these things can be a huge factor into your experience in the workplace. Now, in case you don't know much about my history in terms of work, I sort of started off when I first graduated from university. I worked in a restaurant called Chilango first, which was nice. It was very diverse. It was cool. I ate a lot of good burritos. And one thing I would tell you, Chilango's guacamole, top tier. I hope it's still top tier, but back then, top tier, right? After working in Chilango until I was able to find a job, I worked in a booking agency. So I helped book speakers and entertainment for clients that were doing events and stuff. That was interesting, but for me, I felt like it just wasn't for me. After that, I went into the civil service as pretty much an admin assistant. Honestly, to this day, I think it was one of the best work experiences I had, simply because my team was very diverse. So there was me and another black girl at one point. There was Asian people, white people. We were all like, it was very diverse, and we were all of a similar age as well. So we were in a team and we were all working together, and I felt like it was a good experience. But naturally from that, you kind of want to progress. So then I moved on to an investigator type of role in the civil service. I did not like that. And low-key, I knew that I wouldn't like it, but I just tried it anyway because the girl was trying to get more coins. But I really didn't like it. But it did make me think about what I did want to do. And so it's from there that I ended up becoming a company secretary and deciding to go down that career path. And I think it's interesting how in my work experience, it was really the best experience I had was when I was in the most diverse environment and of people of a similar age. And since then, I haven't had an experience like that. But one thing I have noticed is that when I'm in an environment that is, well, essentially an environment that is not as diverse, it's like you feel like you have to do so much to prove that you were meant to be hired or you're meant to be there. And I don't remember always feeling that way, but I do think that when there's less people that look like you or less people that you can relate to, you feel like you're just there for work and you have to do so much for work. Sometimes I see it as a blessing because it means that I'm really passionate about the work that I do. So ever since I've been in this company secretary career, I've always wanted to go above and beyond. And I think it's because I really like what I do on like a really basic sort of basis. Like I know I like what I do. I want to progress in this role. I've been studying. I've been working so hard. But working so hard to what cost? There's been times I've gone into huge panic attacks, anxiety. I've been really it's really triggered a lot out of me. And although I haven't actually spoken about this on any platform, I'm pretty sure that essentially because of some of the stress that I incurred whilst in one of my roles, I think it ended up having a detrimental effect on my physical health to the point where I ended up developing a condition. And it just really got me thinking about how I can make sure that that doesn't happen again. But also, what was the thinking behind having to do so much, feeling like you have to do so much? And interestingly enough, this week I've had discussions with 2 different people about the same thing. And it wasn't even me, I think, that brought it up. So it's clearly something that I think even people around me are experiencing. One person said that they feel like they have to work so hard, do so much, and even then they may not feel like they will get the promotion that they're hoping for because it's common for their white counterparts to be promoted before them, or it's common for experiences where you feel like there's an excuse for why you can't be promoted even when you're excelling. And then another person I spoke to also spoke about the fact that, they work long hours. These are all things I can relate to. You work really, really long hours and you feel like you're doing so much. You're complimented so much about how well you do, but you feel like you have to keep it going. You can't stop, and you eventually get to burnout, but you can't stop. You feel like that's what work is about, having to do that. But then you look around you, and even if you look at your white counterparts, you feel like they don't feel like they have to do that. That's what it looks like anyway. They don't feel like they have to overachieve, do so much to just get by in work. And it's even talking about this topic, I can't lie to you, has been difficult for me because typically when I talk about something, I want to end with some tips. I want to talk to you guys and say, so this is something I've been dealing with and this is how you should deal with it. But I actually don't have that answer. One thing I know is that it's really important to define what success is. And I feel like that's something I've spoke about on Instagram before. And I think I've maybe even spoken about on this podcast. I think there's an episode I have called What Does Success Look Like or something like that. So definitely check that out. So I know that defining what success means to you is very important, because that way you can know that all your hard work is with a certain goal in mind. But in terms of how to become a secure overachiever or to become more secure at work, I really don't know that answer. I really, really don't know. But I would be so curious to hear if there's anyone that can relate to that experience at all in the workplace, maybe even in school or in university or anything like that. Have you ever felt like you have to do so much, and even sometimes you even feel like, I know I'm doing too much, but I physically can't stop. I just have to keep going. There's a reason. I just have to do this. Do you feel like that? Can you relate to that feeling? Definitely let me know. If you're listening to this on Spotify, check the show notes and there will be a poll about that, or you can reply to me with your experiences. I'd be really, really curious to hear your experiences, because I know that there's a lot of people that feel like they have to do so much at work to the point where it's not healthy. And I want us to have this discussion, and I want us to, if possible, share tips on how we can deal with it and how we can get better and overachieve or achieve a lot, but in a healthy way, not to the point where we get burnout or we feel like we have to move roles, or you know what I mean? So yeah, that's the episode today. It's very short, it's very sweet, but this is sort of like the beginning of some of the, I guess, workplace type conversations that we can have here on Adulting 101. I want to bring back workplace woes. That's one of the popular episodes of Adulting 101. So if you have any workplace woes or anything that you want to share about work, again, let me know on Spotify, or you can DM me on Insta, and we can talk about it. But yeah, for today, for now, thank you so much for listening in. If you haven't checked out last week's episode, please do. Please rate me on Spotify, rate me on Apple Podcasts, all that beautiful stuff. Subscribe on YouTube, and I will see you next week. Bye.